if you see this being an issue where you don't feel valued enough, I think it's okay to talk about it. I think it's important to bring it up to your employer and say, like, look, this is what I feel, like, express your emotions, and maybe they're willing to make it work.
What if there are things we never had the opportunity to learn? We've all been to school or training, but there are things they never taught us that actually make a powerful difference in life. I'm here to share with you all the pieces you've been missing: mindset, health, success, and more. And we'll all learn together from guests along the way. We may not have learned it the traditional way, but oh my goodness, let's keep learning how to do things differently. OMG, Teach Me Tribe. I know that you are a group of high achieving people. Some of you are focused on being a mom. Some of you are killing it at corporate jobs. Some of you are entrepreneurs, and some of you are teachers or educational leaders. Most of you are women. I am a leadership and life coach with an emphasis on mindset, and I've had corporate jobs, worked as a teacher, traveled around the world, and spoken to groups. And no matter what we're aiming to achieve in our lives, there will always, or maybe I should say sometimes, often, be mental programming that holds us back. And women in particular tend to come up against these issues. And we often come up against other people's issues when we aim for leadership roles. So this week, we're going to talk about that. My guest today, Urmi Hossain, is Bengali by blood and Italian by birth. She works in the financial services industry in Canada, where she is currently residing. She's a self-published author, blogger, speaker, polyglot, and mentor. Her first book is Discovering Your Identity: A Rebirth from Interracial Struggle. She is an advocate of women's empowerment and is very passionate about teaching and mentoring girls and women. I love that. She's part of the organization called Women in Leadership for the Victoria chapter in Canada as the social media lead. And she really enjoys being a promoter of self-investing and personal development. And she loves to read books in her free time, which I do too, and boxing as well. So that's cool. Well, welcome.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I think this is going to be a great discussion.
Yes, I'm very happy to be here.
Excellent. Okay, so the way that I like to start typically is to understand your story because our stories are powerful. So tell us how you became involved in finance and then in speaking to and working with women in finance or women in leadership.
Yes, I would say it never crossed my mind to be in finance or to even study finance. I was in another major when I started university, and finance was my minor. And I just chose it randomly for the sake of having a minor. But then what happened is I took few classes and I was in love with the subject. I was so much in love that I was like, this is going to be my major. And it was I want to say it was like a growing love because the more I was taking classes, the more I enjoyed the major. So I enjoyed going to classes. I enjoyed listening to my professors. I enjoyed taking the exams. So then what happened is I started to work in the financial sector because that was my goal. It was to work in finance. And I started to work for like different companies. And while I was working, I was very much convinced that I wanted to keep learning. So then I started to pursue few designation in finance. I did few certificates, and the recent one that I have just completed is called the CFA designation, which stands for Chartered Financial Analyst, and it's probably one of the highest designation that a person can get in the financial sector. And one thing that I noticed as I was working in finance is that it's very, very male dominated, but it was something that I never paid attention to. However, when I think back, even in my university, when I was taking finance classes, I like all the people in my classes, like we were probably like 30 to 40 people. There were a lot of guys versus girls. So even there, I could see this sort of like disparity in the proportion. And even when I started to work in finance, I saw that. I saw that because one thing that I was doing when I was looking for jobs was I was always looking who was part of the management team, who was part of the board of directors. This was something that I would always look at. And every time I would see that it was you would have, let's say, 8 people, and 6 people out of two were just men. And it was something that I brought up in some of the interviews, because for me it's important to see, representation, equality, and I do want to work in an environment where these things are valued. So then I started to do some work and volunteering in relation to that.
Awesome. I like that you recognize that. And one thing that you said really piqued my attention because I think this is common for a lot of listeners probably. And you kind of said you didn't I'm going to requote you wrong, but hopefully I'll get it basically. You said you didn't really know what your path was meant to be. You just kept going and you kept studying and then you kind of found it.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that everybody maybe needs to hear again because some people know exactly what they're meant to do in life early, young. Most of us just kind of need to keep going and trying things and learning things. And then at some point we go, oh, this is why I was doing all those things. This is what I was meant to do. And when I heard you say that, I thought that was kind of important to emphasize. I think it's true for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think so too. And I also think that for a lot of us, sometimes we choose a path because it's probably something that our parents told us to do, or something that it was maybe imposed by the society. Maybe we see all of our friends taking a certain path and we're like, okay, maybe that's what I'm meant to be, but it's not necessarily what you're supposed to be doing. And so yeah, I think the right answer will come as long as you keep trying and failing and keep trying.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's really a gem that everybody listening needs to take away from this because if we don't know exactly, then we keep trying and we'll find it. And I definitely feel that way myself as well. Okay, so we are here to talk about women in leadership and all the stuff that goes along with that, I would say. So, what are some of the issues that women you've talked to tend to face in their professional careers or when they're aiming for leadership?
I think there are a lot of struggles. First of all, I think the first one that I have just that I talked about with someone is about syndrome, which is something that a lot of women unfortunately face. We don't believe that we were meant to have something or achieve something because of our talents and skill, but it was maybe for some luck or stuff like that. So that's one. I think the other one comes a lot with women wanting to get leadership roles, but I think sometimes they don't feel confident enough to go for those roles because probably they don't feel they're good enough, which goes back to the whole concept of imposter syndromes. The other one was related to the fact that maybe we do have women ready to take on those leadership positions, but maybe their priorities are a little bit different depending on them on their age, depending on where they are in their career. And some other women probably are not given the opportunity. They're not probably listened by their employer. And I think it's like it is in those moments that you need to have this open conversation and dialogues with people that you trust and find a way to work your way up there. So these were some of the issues that I found that based on the conversation that we had. A lot of the women are also very eager to like learn new skills and to develop themselves. So like even in Women in Leadership, the organization that I'm part of, we do offer a lot of services and webinars related to public speaking, related to how you can use LinkedIn to promote yourself. So we try to like, empower women to like be an advocate of themselves. But there
Mhm.
is that struggle, because I think a lot of the time there is that sort of thought of like, okay, like how do I balance work and life? Like, yes, I want to be this woman in career and like, just be a CEO of a company, but then at the same time there are priorities at home. And so a lot of the time I think this is why probably we don't see that many women in like managerial positions, because I feel like it stops because their priorities are different. So there is that as well. So they're not able to find this sort of balance.
Right. And I have grown kids, so I absolutely recognize that. I went through that and made career decisions partly because of family. And that I think is something that is never going to go away. There's always going to be conflicting priorities in our lives and we're always going to have to make our own decision about that. And we're all going to choose differently. And that's, I think in my opinion as long as we get to choose what's right for us, then all good. I also heard you say some things that maybe aren't so much our choice as women, that people don't listen to us, or imposter syndrome. Oh my goodness, we don't think people should listen to us, maybe.
Hmm.
Or we maybe don't go for the bigger roles because we have that fear. So yeah, those things are really, I think, rampant and an issue for sure.
Yes, definitely. And even with some of the friends that I have spoken to, they went also through the same struggle. They were like, I don't know if I should change my workplace because I feel like I'm not valued enough. I feel like this is not in line with my, core values, with the things I want to do in life. And some of them, they don't feel recognized enough as well, which is why we see people, like quitting their job, maybe being a full-time, mom, or maybe just working from home and running their own business because I think they like that sort of freedom. So we also see a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs nowadays because they get that sort of independency, autonomy that they're not able to get from like a workplace as well, which is still like, I think, which is still a good path as well, because I think there is a lot of growth that comes by being an entrepreneur, and you get to develop a lot of leadership skills as well.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely. And listeners, if you're thinking about trying something and going out there and being an entrepreneur, try it. I fully agree. One thing you mentioned really struck me, and that is the recognition.
Mhm.
And I mean, I don't know that we can figure this issue out in the next 20 minutes. However, isn't it interesting that maybe there's different ways of getting recognition, and we're wanting something that a work environment doesn't provide? Or we could flip that and say, well, maybe the work environment really should provide that in a more personal way. Maybe that gets forgotten in the rush of business. I don't know, but I'm glad you pointed that out, because I agree that's an issue.
Yeah, recognition is an issue and feeling valued is also an issue. But I think it's like, I think it goes both ways. I think sometimes, especially when you work in the corporate world, like people are so sucked up into their work that they're not thinking about other things. They're not thinking about, okay, I should probably like say something good to my employee. Like it's not that they've forgotten about you, but it probably because there's so much work that they don't think about that. So I think as an employer, you should probably take a step back and take a few moments to really recognize the work that your employee is doing. Because I feel like when you do that, you are able to retain more and more employees and people are more willing to come to work. And I think on the other side, from the employee perspective, I think is that if you see this being an issue where you don't feel valued enough, I think it's okay to talk about it. I think it's important to bring it up to your employer and say like, look, this is what I feel, like express your emotions, and maybe they're willing to make it work and make sure that you're happy. I think it's just a win-win situation because the employer wants to keep you and you need a job to pay your bills and to make a living out of it. So I think it goes both ways, but there is nothing wrong just bringing it up.
And that's kind of a perfect segue into the next question I was about to ask you. But yeah, why would we not speak up for ourselves in a friendly, maybe friendly is not the right word, but in a diplomatic way? Absolutely agree. Thank you for saying that. And what I was about to ask you is, how have you overcome some of these issues, or helped others or advised others to do that? So I feel like that's probably the first part of the answer right there.
Yes. Even for me, I think you talked about the whole mental trap at the beginning, when you want to do something but you don't feel confident enough. I also struggle a lot with that. I have to say, I have to be honest. Like I feel like if I was going to speak up, I was just worried that, something terrible might happen. We always tend to make a small problem much bigger than it is. And so I used to make all these like scenarios in my mind, like what would happen? Like, what if I get fired or something? So we, again, don't believe in ourselves. We often don't speak up for ourselves. And I feel like we're not an advocate for ourselves. And I think it's wrong because we're losing by not, advocating for ourselves. So there was a lot of inner work that I had to do. And I watched like a couple of like YouTube videos. I watched like some content to understand like how can I get a bit more confidence and believe in myself. Because when you stand up for yourself, you stand up for other people as well. It's like, it's not just the work that I'm doing for myself. I think you stand up for yourself. If they recognize it, then, they will do the same thing for other people as well. They will keep it in mind that, oh, this person went through this same struggle. Let's not repeat the same mistake. So I understood that I had to get a little bit of more confidence. Yes, there was a little bit of fear. What if I'm not able to talk about it? Yes, it's scary. I don't know about the unknown, but I'm not losing anything just by talking about it. I'm losing if I'm not bringing things up. So I had to work on it to get a little bit of more confidence. And I mentor a lot of young women. And I always tell them, like, you are your best advocate. You have to speak up for yourself, because if you don't, no one will do it for you. So just always talk nice about you. If there are some things that you want to work on, make a list of the things you want to achieve, make a things of your accomplishment, and then make a case out of it. So I think it always helps to have some points or some proof of the things that you have done.
Fantastic advice. I feel like, Tribe, you should rewind the last couple minutes and listen again. That was fantastic advice.
Thank you.
It really does come from mindset and confidence so much. And I like that that's where you started for yourself, for sure. And I mean, that's where imposter syndrome sits, right? Is kind of in our heads and in our confidence. But also the point that you go into a discussion with someone or into a meeting prepared with some
Mhm.
things you want to bring up, some things you want to work on. 100% agree. And I try I try to always speak sort of positively, but and so I don't know if others will take this negatively, but here's something I learned in my career that sort of underscores what you're saying, Army. We in a corporate job or even in a teaching job, in really any type of, job, we are always replaceable. And sometimes we don't think we are, but we are always. And so that's, to me, one more reason to speak up for ourselves and advocate for ourselves. Because, like you said, who else is going to do it? Because even if they wouldn't want us to leave, we're still replaceable. So we're the ones that have to stand up for ourselves. I couldn't agree with you more. Excellent, excellent advice.
Thank you.
You're listening to OMG Teach Me because you want to learn how to live well, how to leave the angst behind, maybe some secrets that you never learned in school that might make a really big difference in your life. Well, I have for you 7 days of secrets to living well for free. So make sure that you come check it out. Sign up at www.bit.ly/OMG Teach Me secrets, and I can't wait to hear which ones you try and which ones make a difference for you. So let's go into confidence just a little bit more. Confidence in our careers. Or I know that I have some listeners who are right now taking a break from their career and raising their kids, or who are doing something else, starting a business, as you mentioned, all these things. Confidence is still important. So why is confidence so important, and how can we kind of keep improving that?
Yes, I think confidence is probably the most important thing that you will need, even when you don't have any type of skills. That's my that's my opinion about it. I think if you're a very confident person and you come across as a confident person, anyone will believe you. When they say fake it until you make it, I think that's like it goes well with it. And I think confidence, it's so important to work in it. And there are things that you can do to work in it. I think like you get more confident if you believe in yourself. That's one thing. I think it's a self-belief. I think you get a lot of confidence if you are working on certain skills because you feel a bit more prepared. I think confidence brings a lot of respect in you, but also around you, because people will look at you differently. People will look at you as like, a role model, someone they want to imitate, someone they want to look up to. I think confidence brings a lot of self-worth. So, it's not just, yeah, this person is very knowledgeable, but she has a lot of confidence. Like you see the confidence in someone when they speak. And I think confidence comes when you get out of your comfort zone. I think that's probably one of the biggest lessons that I have learned throughout all these years, is that I was able to get confident when I faced all my fears, and when I decided to face all the fears. You have to get comfortable with uncomfortable, because growth really is on the other side, and you cannot get confident just by sitting at home not working on yourself. So I think these are some of the things that you really have to do to be a confident person.
I agree. And something you mentioned to me when we were talking earlier was what you do with Toastmasters
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and how that has affected you. So tell us a little bit about that in case anyone either has heard of it and doesn't really know what it is or hasn't heard of it.
Yeah, Toastmaster has been probably a part of like it is something very important for me because it has helped me to become more confident. So it's a nonprofit organization that is based on that's main focus is to improve your public speaking skills and also your leadership skills. Every city has every areas in the city have a Toastmaster club. So what you do is that you go to these clubs and you have regular meetings, usually once a week. Some meetings are an hour long, some others are 2 hours long. And what you do is that you get to deliver speeches. So there is an actual program, like if there is a very good structured program that tells you like, okay, this is the first speech that you have to do. These are the objectives. So they tell you like how you're supposed to be doing all of this. And one thing that people are not aware of is that you don't just learn about public speaking. You learn about like critical thinking, you learn about active listening, you learn about organizational skills because there are different roles that you have to take. And the critical thinking part, you get it when you're evaluating people. So you give speeches, but then you are evaluated. So you learn from the mistakes so that you can do better the next time. And so it has helped me a lot because I feel like before joining Toastmasters, I wasn't as confident to speak to people. I wasn't as confident to speak out somewhere. I wasn't as confident to do all these things that I do right now. So it has really helped me a lot. Like it gave me a boost of confidence.
I love that. And I'm glad that you went through that because I have never joined a Toastmasters group and I have thought about it. I knew what it was. And at the same time, it felt scary. Even though I'm used to speaking in public, it felt scary to go and do something that was all about speaking. So, how do they kind of help people who might walk in after listening to this and just be terrified? Do they make it feel comfortable a little bit?
And this is why I love Toastmaster because it's a very safe and non-judgmental place. And everyone goes there for the same reason. No one is born perfect. No one is born with public speaking skills. So when you go there, they make you feel very comfortable. They ask you if you're willing to like speak on the first day that you go there, but they ask you very simple things. So they encourage you to keep coming and to keep learning. So it's a very, like I always think Toastmasters is my second family because it has been like that for me. They're always pushing me to keep improving, to keep, doing more speeches. So it's a very like safe place. No one is there to judge you. So you feel very comfortable.
Well, thank you for that because I know it's a great organization, even though I've admitted I am not a part of it. But I think if you're listening and you heard her talk about confidence, this is something that you might want to look into because I do think you're right. Toastmasters groups exist just all over the place. So there's a piece of advice again that might help with confidence because it's not just really public speaking, I guess, as you said, it's being able to stand up for yourself, right? And
Yeah.
feel like you know what you can say.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
So, one other thing that strikes me about you is you do a lot of outside of the workplace kind of networking, and Toastmasters would be one of those things, women in leadership. And so, before we wrap up, I want to sort of ask for the listeners' benefit, why do you do that and how does it help you to be involved in these groups outside of work?
Why do I do it? It's a good question. I think I just enjoy enriching my knowledge by doing different things. I do have a lot of passions and I think giving back has been something very important for me. I think like I don't think everything has to be related to money. Like yes, I work full time, but it's part of my identity, but it's not my identity. My identity is built on different things. I want people to recognize me for the work that I've been doing, which is not strictly related to my work. And that's why I do all these things on the side. I do think I have a curious side. So I like to try different things out to see, what that might bring me. This is why, I joined Toastmasters. This is why I joined Women in Leadership. This is why I wrote a book. And I also like challenge myself in this way. Like, I'm like, okay, I want to do this. Am I capable of doing this? So I challenge myself to do all these things to see what my potential could be. So I'm always willing to try
Yeah.
and do different things, but I never thought that all of these things would have brought me to be what I am today and to have this much of knowledge. Like I like even when I gave you my introduction and I told you, okay, I'm a speaker, self-published author, this and that. I never thought of myself like that until I had to write it down somewhere for someone. And so I don't even realize it, to be honest. I don't even realize when
Interesting.
yeah, I don't realize it until someone points it out. I'm like, oh, you are someone who wears many hats. And I'm like, oh, you're right. So it's a little bit of like exploration, following my passion, doing the things that I love.
That's excellent. And one of the things that I will say to anyone listening, or I mean anyone who will listen to me, is exactly what you're saying, that if we just go to a job and we come home and we sit on the couch,
Hmm.
nothing wrong with TV, nothing wrong with reading, whatever you're doing sitting on the couch, we it's almost like we sleepwalk a bit through life, I think, and we forget that there could be so many other things, fun things, hobbies, teams, groups. I love women's networking groups. I'm
Yeah.
sure if you're listening and you're thinking, I need to meet people, there's probably something out there you could Google. It would be in your area. So yeah, I love that you're doing all of those things. And I think it just makes life more fun and more
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I just to add something, I wrote an article for an organization about like women who turned 30 because I turned 30 2 years ago, and it was it was had to be ready about it because it's like, oh my gosh, I'm turning 30, but I realized there is beauty out of it. So it's one of the beautiful things I noticed is that you're more than willing to try new things, and you're willing to live your moment and not just, like you said, sit on the couch and do nothing. Like you're more willing to try new things. So that was one thing that came to my mind when I was writing the article, and you pointed it out right now. So
Yes, I'm with you. I'm 2 decades ahead of you, and I'm with you. And I think maybe every time every time we hit these different what is the word? These different kind
milestone.
of thank you, milestones in life. I couldn't think of the word. We sort of go, "Wait a minute, why am I worried about what everybody else thinks? I want to do what I want to do." And
Yeah,
it gets even more and even more. So,
yeah,
I love that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm happy. I think some people told me that when you reach 30, you become unapologetic. I do agree with that.
I love it. And you should. You should.
Yeah.
And yes, we're not saying be rude or be mean, but unapologetic, fully agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, this has been a great discussion, and I hope that some pieces of this have stuck with you, Tribe, as you've been listening. Now, we have to wrap up with the question I always ask, but before we do that, actually, let me ask you, how can people connect with you or learn more about what you do or your book? Where would you send them?
Yes, so I have a LinkedIn account. It's called Urmi Hossain, so anyone can connect with me through that. I have my YouTube channel called Urmi Hossain. I have my blog called myways.ca. My book is available on Amazon, and it's called Discovering Your Identity, a rebirth from interracial struggle. And I also have an Instagram account called Urma Mio.
Love it. Wonderful. And I will put those things in the show notes as well so that everyone can go and click easily. Excellent. And now I ask everybody this question and add it to my mood lift playlist on Spotify. So tell us, what's your favorite song to listen to when you want to put yourself in a good mood, raise your vibration, however you think of it?
Okay, so there is this song. I don't know if you know it, and I don't know if you have it on your playlist. Hopefully, you don't. It's called Happy by Pharrell Williams.
Ooh, I love that song and it is not on there yet. So
Yes.
love it. And what is it about that song that puts you in a good mood?
I used to listen to this whenever, and I still do when I go to work, and I need to, be motivated and be super pumped for the day. So I listen to that. It's just the rhythm and the whole, like, it's not even the words, but it's when he says, "Because I'm happy." Na, 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 na." And so it just it
Yes.
just it just gives me a boost, so I can start the day in the good mood.
I love it and I completely agree. And in fact, that song was used in one of the Despicable Me movies, which I also love. So that reminds me of that too. Wonderful. Thank you for that. I think it's going to be a great addition. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing everything that we talked about.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed recording this episode with Urmi so much. It is really always interesting in life to speak with people from different parts of the world and different backgrounds and different ages. You heard that at the end, right? Now, women in leadership is such a huge, huge, huge topic. I was so happy that we were able to pull some things out in this discussion that have just continued to stick out to me in my head. One of those things is confidence. How do we work on our confidence? We talked about working on your self-belief. We talked about working on skills that are applicable to your job or your business or your day, and they help you feel more confident. And we talked about getting out of your comfort zone. I know that's hard to hear, but it really does matter. We also talked quite a bit about wanting recognition and wanting to feel valued. And so think about that from both sides. If you're in a position where you're not getting enough recognition, think about how you could speak up about that. But if you're in a position where you could recognize others, maybe do that more. And I'm going to keep that in mind as well. And then her words, when she said, when you stand up for yourself, you stand up for other people as well. That's just going to stick with me for a long, long, long time. And so let's let that be one of the concepts that we really take away from this. You be you and be a model to help others be themselves as well. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. OMG, I would be so honored if you would take a moment, leave a rating, leave a review, or take a screenshot and share on your social media. Let's get this message out further into the world. Now it's time to head down to the show notes to see the resources I mentioned. We may not have learned this before, but it sure is powerful now.